masterpiece of Olympus had endured, but whispers of unrest had begun to ripple through the realms. Far below Olympus, deep within the bowels of the earth, ancient powers stirred. Gaia, the primordial Earth Mother, had grown resentful of the gods' dominion over her land, frustrated by what she saw as the arrogance of Zeus and his allies. To restore balance in her own way, Gaia summoned the giants, her mighty offspring, and breathed life into their cause, to overthrow Olympus and end the rule of Zeus once and for all. These giants were unlike any enemy the gods had faced, towering figures with unparalleled strength and powers drawn from the earth itself. They possessed a ferocity that rivaled even the Titans. Driven by Gaia's fury and bound by a single purpose, they began to gather their forces, preparing to wage war against Olympus in what would become known as the Gigantomachy. Zeus, sensing the stirring of this new threat, called upon his allies and loyal gods. Hera, Poseidon, Athena, Hermes, Apollo, and Artemis answered his call, each prepared to defend Olympus from those who would challenge their reign. The gods gathered in the great hall, their faces a mixture of determination and concern as Zeus spoke. A new enemy approaches, one born from the depths of the earth and driven by ancient anger. Zeus declared, his voice resonating through the hall. These giants do not fight for power alone. They fight to bring chaos and to avenge Gaia's grievances against us. We must stand united, for only together can we protect Olympus and maintain the order we have created. The gods exchanged glances, each feeling the weight of the task before them. They had fought together in the Titanomachy, but this battle would be different. The giants, fueled by Gaia's wrath, possessed strengths that none had yet seen, united by a shared purpose. The gods prepared for a battle that would test not only their powers, but their resolve and loyalty. As the gods took their positions, the earth began to tremble, a warning of the giants' approach. Massive figures emerged from the ground, their forms rising from mountains and valleys, each giant embodying the strength and fury of the earth itself. With roars that echoed through the heavens, the giants charged toward Olympus, their eyes filled with the desire to bring the gods to their knees. Zeus, thunderbolt in hand, unleashed the first strike, a blinding flash of lightning that arced across the sky and struck one of the giants, sending it sprawling to the ground. But even as his thunderbolt crackled with energy, Zeus could see that these giants were no ordinary foes. They shrugged off the blow and rose again, their bodies hardened by the very stone of the earth. The battle had begun, and Olympus shook with the force of their clash. Each strike from the gods met an equal force from the giants, the earth quaking beneath their feet as divine and earthly powers collided. Poseidon, commanding the power of the seas, summoned massive waves that swept through the battlefield, crashing against the giants with the weight of oceans. Yet, for every giant that fell, two more seemed to rise, their strength unyielding and their loyalty to Gaia unwavering. Poseidon, undeterred, wielded his trident with precision, determined to protect the world he had vowed to watch over. Athena fought with calculated strategy, her shield deflecting the crushing blows of the giants, her spear finding weak points in their otherwise impervious bodies. As goddess of wisdom and war, she knew that brute force alone would not win this battle. She used her cunning to outmaneuver the giants, striking where their defenses were weakest. Her precision brought a glimmer of hope to the gods, as her tactics revealed ways to challenge even the strongest foes. Meanwhile, Artemis and Apollo moved swiftly across the battlefield, their arrows striking with deadly accuracy. Together, they brought the light and ferocity of the hunt, targeting the giants with relentless precision, their combined efforts chipping away at the enemy forces. As the battle wore on, the gods began to tire. For every giant they defeated, it seemed another would rise to take its place. Gaia's influence was clear. The earth itself was supplying her warriors with strength, and the gods felt the strain of fighting against such a seemingly endless foe. In the midst of the chaos, Zeus realized that they needed a way to sever the giants from Gaia's support if they hoped to turn the tide of battle. In a bold move, Zeus called upon Hermes, the swift and cunning messenger of the gods. "Hermes," Zeus commanded, "go to Hephaestus. Tell him we need a weapon that can disrupt the bond between these giants and the earth from which they draw their strength." Hermes, with speed that no other god could match, raced to Hephaestus's forge, relaying Zeus's urgent request. Understanding the gravity of the situation, Hephaestus quickly crafted chains forged from celestial fire, chains that could bind even the mightiest of beings, severing their connection to the earth and weakening their power. Armed with the celestial chains, Hermes returned to the battlefield, delivering them to Zeus and his allies. With renewed determination, the gods unleashed a new strategy. Zeus, Hera, and Poseidon coordinated their attacks, using the chains to bind the giants one by one, each bound giant losing its connection to Gaia and falling to the combined strength of the gods. The battle's momentum shifted. The giants, once unstoppable, began to falter as the gods severed their connection to the earth, stripping them of their regenerative strength. Seeing their ranks begin to fall, the remaining giants fought with increased desperation, but the gods' unity and strategic advantage proved too great. Athena, guiding the gods with her wisdom, directed each attack, her strategy exploiting every weakness exposed by the binding chains. With each giant that fell, the gods moved closer to securing their victory, their combined strength overpowering even Gaia's fury. As the final giants fell, Olympus was filled with an exhausted yet triumphant silence. The gods, though battle-worn, stood victorious over the defeated giants, their unity and strategy having won the day. With Gaia's warriors vanquished, peace once again settled over Olympus, and the earth quieted, its tremors fading as the wrath of the giants was laid to rest. But Zeus knew that this victory, hard won though it was, would not mark an end to the challenges they faced. Gaia's anger had shown that even in victory, the gods would be tested. There would always be forces, ancient and powerful, that would rise against Olympus, forces that would test the bonds between gods and push the limits of their unity. The Gigantomachy had proven that while they could overcome any foe, true strength lay not only in power, but in the unity and resilience of Olympus. Together, they had faced the wrath of the earth itself and emerged stronger, their bond fortified by the fires of battle. In the aftermath of the battle, the gods gathered in Olympus to reflect on what they had learned. They knew that their unity had been the key to their victory, and they reaffirmed their commitment to protect the realms they governed. Yet, even in this moment of triumph, they understood that challenges would continue to arise, each one testing their resolve and purpose. Zeus addressed the gods, his voice filled with both pride and caution. "We have won today, but we must remember that our duty as gods is not only to rule but to protect. The Gigantomachy has shown us that our strength lies not only in power, but in wisdom and unity. Let us remain vigilant, for this peace we have won is fragile, and we must honor it with every choice we make." The gods nodded, each feeling the weight of Zeus's words. They had faced the fury of Gaia and the strength of the giants, and though they had emerged victorious, they knew that the future held trials that would test them in ways they had yet to imagine. But even as Olympus stood united, forces within the council began to stir with ambition and dissent. Join us in the next episode as Hera, feeling constrained by Zeus's authority, challenges the unity of Olympus in a bold act of rebellion that will test their loyalty and reshape the bonds between the gods. The gods of Olympus had celebrated their hard-won victory in the Gigantomachy, feeling invincible after their defeat of the giants. Yet beneath the surface, not all were at ease. Hera, queen of Olympus and wife to Zeus, had long felt the weight of her position. Although she was revered and respected by the other gods, Hera found herself increasingly at odds with Zeus, whose authority she began to view as stifling and domineering. Hera's dissatisfaction grew as she witnessed Zeus making decisions that affected the entire pantheon without consulting her or the other gods. She felt that Olympus was not ruled by the collective wisdom of its gods, but was instead governed by the singular will of Zeus. This sense of exclusion planted seeds of resentment in Hera, who began to question her place as queen of Olympus. In quiet moments, Hera confided her frustrations to a select few gods who shared her sentiments, though none openly opposed Zeus. A small circle of gods, including Ares, the god of war, and her own son, began to listen. Hera's words stirred something in them, a feeling that perhaps Olympus should be a place where each god's voice could be heard. Emboldened by their support, Hera began to consider the unthinkable, a rebellion from within Olympus itself. Hera's rebellion required careful planning and absolute secrecy. She approached Hephaestus, the god of blacksmiths and craftsmen, knowing his loyalty lay more with his mother than with Zeus. Though he was hesitant, Hephaestus listened as Hera shared her vision, a council where all gods held equal influence, where no single god could impose their will upon the rest. Hera's words struck a chord within him, and despite his reservations, Hephaestus agreed to aid her. With Hephaestus's skill, Hera devised a trap to subdue Zeus, chains crafted from divine metal, imbued with enchantments that could restrain even the mightiest of gods. These chains would be near unbreakable, designed specifically to bind Zeus and force him into submission. Hera's plan was not to dethrone Zeus completely, but to show him that his rule was not absolute, to prove that Olympus was a realm of gods, not a kingdom under one king. Ares, driven by his loyalty to his mother and a thirst for autonomy, eagerly joined the rebellion. His strength and prowess in battle would be crucial if Zeus resisted. Hera's alliance grew in strength, and with each passing day, her quiet resolve hardened. The time to act was drawing near, and she knew that if she faltered, her dream of a fairer Olympus would be crushed. On an ordinary day, when the gods gathered for a council, Hera and her allies put their plan into motion. Hephaestus had positioned the enchanted chains discreetly within Zeus's throne, and Hera had instructed the gods to play their parts, acting as though the council was proceeding as usual. As Zeus took his seat, unaware of the scheme unfolding around him, Hera gave Hephaestus a silent nod. The instant Zeus was seated, Hephaestus activated the trap, and the enchanted chains sprang to life, binding Zeus tightly to his throne. For a moment, Zeus looked stunned, unable to comprehend the betrayal taking place before his eyes. He struggled, summoning his strength, but the divine chains held firm, resisting even the power of his thunderbolt. "What is the meaning of this, Hera?" Zeus thundered, his voice filled with fury and disbelief. But Hera stood before him, resolute, her gaze steady. "Zeus," she began, her voice carrying the weight of years of frustration, "you rule Olympus with a heavy hand. You make decisions without consulting those of us who share this throne with you. We are gods, not subjects, and we deserve a voice in the fate of Olympus." The council fell silent, each god watching in stunned silence as Hera confronted Zeus. Some felt sympathy for her cause, while others feared the consequences of her rebellion, but no one dared to speak. Their loyalty divided between their king and their queen. Zeus's eyes blazed with anger, yet beneath his fury lay a hint of sorrow as he realized the depth of Hera's discontent. "Do you think this will end well for you, Hera?" he warned, his voice low but menacing. "I am not a tyrant, but I am the ruler of Olympus, and your defiance threatens the very unity we fought to create." Hera did not flinch, her own voice filled with conviction. "Unity cannot exist if it is built on control, Zeus. Olympus was meant to be a realm of harmony where each god could thrive. You forget that in your quest to govern without question." The tension in the room was palpable. Gods like Athena and Hermes watched with concern, recognizing that this conflict went beyond a simple power struggle. It was a clash of ideals, a test of whether Olympus could truly be a unified realm. When the rulers themselves held differing visions of what unity meant. Realizing that the rebellion threatened to fracture Olympus entirely, Poseidon stepped forward, raising his trident to silence the escalating confrontation. "Hera, Zeus, enough," he commanded, his voice calm yet forceful. "We are gods, bound to protect and guide, not to fall to infighting and division. Let us seek a resolution before we lose the very harmony we claim to uphold." Hestia, goddess of the hearth and peacekeeper of Olympus, also spoke, her voice gentle yet firm. "Hera's concerns are valid, and Zeus's role as king is equally. Perhaps it is time to redefine what leadership looks like in Olympus, to find a balance that respects both authority and equality." With the support of the council, a compromise began to take shape. Instead of a strict hierarchy, they proposed a council-based governance where the voices of all gods would be respected and consulted on matters affecting Olympus and the mortal realm. Zeus would remain king, but the power would be shared, allowing each god a voice in the decisions that shaped their world. Zeus, though reluctant, recognized the wisdom in their words. He agreed to the council's proposal, though he cautioned that leadership, even shared, would require discipline and unity to prevent chaos. Hera, having made her point, accepted the new arrangement, her heart lighter, knowing that her voice and the voices of others would no longer be ignored. With the council's agreement, Hephaestus stepped forward to remove the chains binding Zeus. As the enchanted bonds fell away, Zeus rose, looking over the gathered gods, his expression one of both weariness and resolve. He knew that this act of rebellion had not been born of malice, but from a desire for a fairer Olympus, a desire that, in his quest for order, he had perhaps overlooked. "I will honor this agreement," Zeus declared, his tone steady. We shall rule as a council, with each god's voice valued and heard. But let this be the last time such defiance is needed to bring change. We must stand united, or our enemies will seize upon our division. The gods nodded, each feeling the gravity of Zeus's words. They had come dangerously close to fracturing Olympus, and they understood that their strength lay in unity, not in unchecked authority. Hera, satisfied, took her place beside Zeus, a silent promise passing between them. They would rule together, balancing each other's strengths, leading Olympus as equals in both power and respect. As peace returned to Olympus, the gods resumed their roles, each one empowered by the council's new system of governance. Zeus and Hera had faced their greatest test, not from an external enemy, but from within their own council. They understood now that Olympus could not remain strong without the voices of all its gods, without a balance of power that allowed each of them to thrive. Though the rebellion had shaken their unity, it had also given birth to a stronger Olympus, a realm where every god's wisdom contributed to the rule of the heavens. Hera's act of defiance had paved the way for a fairer, more balanced Olympus, a place where unity was built on respect and shared purpose rather than control. In the days that followed, Hera's rebellion became a legend among gods and mortals alike, a reminder that true power was not about command, but about balance. The council system became a foundation for Olympus's governance, a testament to the strength that could be found in collective wisdom. Hera's defiance had reshaped Olympus, marking the beginning of a new era of respect and collaboration, even in the face of individual differences. Zeus and Hera, once divided by ambition and control, now ruled with mutual respect, understanding that Olympus's future depended on their ability to listen to one another, to compromise, and to lead as a united front. But the lesson of Hera's rebellion was not enough to secure lasting peace. In the next episode, dissent within Olympus deepens as the gods themselves rise against Zeus, leading to a rebellion that will see the king of gods brought low. Join us as the Olympians confront their king in an uprising that threatens to change the fate of Olympus forever. Since Hera's rebellion, Olympus had functioned as a council, with the gods having a voice in decisions affecting their realms. While this arrangement had initially brought peace, some gods began to feel that Zeus's power still cast a heavy shadow over Olympus. The council had created a sense of shared governance, but Zeus's influence, especially in matters of divine justice and punishment, continued to shape decisions, leaving many feeling stifled under his rule. Ares, the god of war, harbored a particular resentment, believing that his might and domain were undervalued by the council. While Hera had found some satisfaction in the shared power structure, Ares's desire for independence and respect clashed with Zeus's authority. Joined by Apollo, who had begun to question Zeus's methods, and Poseidon, who believed that the rule of Olympus could benefit from more balanced leadership, whispers of revolt started to form among the gods. The dissatisfaction spread, and soon a group of gods began to gather secretly, their purpose clear: to challenge Zeus and establish a new order, one that did not require a single ruler to wield ultimate control. With Zeus away, focused on matters of justice in the mortal realm, the rebellious gods seized their opportunity to act. Led by Hera, Ares, and Poseidon, the coalition of gods carefully devised a plan to subdue Zeus upon his return. They knew that Zeus's power was unparalleled, but they also knew that his strength could be contained if they acted with precision and unity. Hephaestus, the god of fire and forge, was approached to create unbreakable chains, enchanted with celestial energy to bind even the most powerful of gods. Though Hephaestus was reluctant, he recognized the shared grievances of his peers and agreed to aid them. Hera took it upon herself to coordinate the trap, determined to show Zeus that the gods would no longer live under the rule of one unchecked power. She envisioned a council truly governed by mutual respect, free from Zeus's dominance. As Hephaestus crafted the chains in his forge, the gods prepared their powers, each ready to do their part to subdue the king of Olympus. When word came that Zeus was returning to Olympus, the rebellious gods took their positions. Hera, Ares, Poseidon, and Apollo readied themselves, each armed with their unique abilities, united by the singular goal of restraining their king and reshaping Olympus. As Zeus arrived in the great hall of Olympus, he was met with a strange silence. Sensing that something was amiss, he paused, his thunderbolt sparking faintly in his hand as he scanned the empty hall. Just as he began to call for Hera, the trap was sprung. Chains of celestial metal shot forward from the shadows, wrapping around his arms and legs, binding him before he could react. Zeus struggled against the enchanted chains, his strength unmatched, but the combined force of the gods holding the chains kept him bound. Poseidon summoned torrents of water to reinforce the chains. Ares braced himself against Zeus's might, and Apollo stood ready with his bow, his arrows aimed at Zeus should he manage to break free. "What is the meaning of this treachery?" Zeus thundered, his voice filled with both fury and disbelief as he glared at his fellow gods. "You would betray me after all we have accomplished together." Hera stepped forward, her expression a mixture of determination and sorrow. "This is not betrayal, Zeus," she replied firmly. "This is justice. For too long we have allowed you to dictate the laws of Olympus as you see fit, disregarding the voices of those who stand beside you. We are gods, not subjects." Zeus's gaze swept over the faces of the gods he had fought alongside, each one now standing against him. "You claim to act for justice," he said, his tone laced with contempt, "but your rebellion will only bring chaos. Olympus is strong because it has order, not because of unchecked power." Despite his bindings, Zeus summoned his strength, a storm gathering within him. Lightning crackled from his body, illuminating the hall with blinding light as he struggled against the chains. For a moment, it seemed he might break free, the sheer force of his fury shaking the foundations of Olympus. But the gods held their ground, reinforcing the chains with their powers, uniting their strength to subdue him. Poseidon's water surged around the chains, reinforcing them, while Apollo's arrows glowed with divine energy, aimed at Zeus in case he managed to escape. Ares braced himself, pressing down on the chains with the full weight of his strength, determined to keep the king bound. Even Athena, typically a voice of reason, watched with resolve, her loyalty to the cause unwavering. She understood that this rebellion, while difficult, was necessary to remind Zeus that his rule required the trust and respect of those who shared Olympus with him. As Zeus's strength began to wane, the rebellious gods tightened the chains, finally bringing the king of Olympus to his knees. For the first time, Zeus was powerless, held captive by those he had ruled. With Zeus subdued, Hera addressed him, her voice steady but filled with conviction. "Zeus, this is not a coup but a demand for balance. You have ruled Olympus with a heavy hand, disregarding the voices of those who share your power. We stand here today not to overthrow you, but to demand that Olympus be governed with fairness, with the input of every god who calls it home." Poseidon stepped forward, adding his voice to Hera's. "We are gods, not soldiers to follow orders without question. We each have our domains, our responsibilities. Olympus should be a council of equals, a place where each of us can shape the world without fear of being overruled by one voice." Zeus, though weakened, managed a defiant smile. "You think you can rule without a leader? You think Olympus can be governed by a council alone?" His words were met with silence, the gods standing firm in their resolve. They knew this was their moment to assert their own authority, to claim a role in the governance of Olympus that honored their unique strength. After days of imprisonment, Zeus's defiance began to fade, replaced by a begrudging acceptance of his fellow gods' demands. He recognized that the strength of Olympus did not lie in his power alone, but in the unity of the gods who fought by his side. Finally, Zeus agreed to the council's terms, consenting to a governance where each god's voice would be respected. As a symbolic gesture of their newly defined roles, Hera, Poseidon, Apollo, and Athena stepped forward to remove Zeus's chains, each acknowledging that their unity was essential for the survival of Olympus. The chains fell away, and Zeus rose to his feet, his face a mixture of anger and grudging respect. He had been humbled, reminded that his rule was not absolute, that even the king of the gods needed the trust and support of his allies. "Let us rule together," Zeus said at last, his voice filled with a newfound understanding. "Let this council be our strength, a reminder that Olympus belongs to all of us. From this day forward we govern as one, and I will honor that commitment." With the revolt resolved, the gods reaffirmed their dedication to Olympus and each other, recognizing the value of shared governance. The Council of Olympus was now a true assembly of equals, each god empowered to shape the destiny of the cosmos alongside their king. The rebellion had revealed the cracks in their unity, but it had also forged a stronger bond, one built on mutual respect and understanding. Zeus, though still king, embraced his role as a leader who listened, a ruler who valued the wisdom and strength of his allies. Hera took her place beside him with a newfound sense of respect, knowing that her voice would be heard, her role as queen truly honored. Poseidon and Apollo, too, felt the weight of their responsibilities as equal rulers, committed to preserving the harmony of Olympus. The revolt had changed them all, reminding them that true power was not about dominance, but about unity and trust. The revolt of the Olympians became a story told among gods and mortals alike, a tale of humility, defiance, and the strength found in unity. Zeus's rule, though challenged, had emerged stronger, his understanding of leadership forever altered by the rebellion. He would never forget the chains that had bound him, a symbol of the limits of power and the value of trust. From that day forward, the Council of Olympus operated with a deeper sense of balance, a commitment to govern with the input and wisdom of all gods. They understood that only together could they protect the cosmos, each voice valued, each strength honored. But even as the gods secured their rule, a force of chaos beyond their control lurked on the horizon. Join us in the next episode as Typhon, a monstrous creature born of primordial fury. In the depths of Tartarus, where light barely touched and chaos reigned supreme, a dark force stirred, a force that even the gods of Olympus had long hoped to avoid. Typhon, the monstrous child of Gaia and Tartarus, was a being of unspeakable fury and destructive power. Birthed from the Earth Mother's anger at the gods' treatment of her children and the bitter battles of the Titanomachy and Gigantomachy, Typhon was more than just a monster. He was chaos incarnate, a creature whose very essence was designed to topple the mightiest of gods. When Typhon finally rose from the depths, his form was unlike any seen before. Towering above mountains, his body was covered in scales as dark as midnight, and from his many heads emerged streams of venomous smoke. His eyes glowed with a crimson rage that seemed to burn through the very fabric of the heavens. His roar shook the earth, a chilling cry that carried Gaia's rage across the cosmos. The gods had barely secured their unity, yet Typhon's arrival threatened to dismantle everything they had built. As the ground trembled with Typhon's approach, Prometheus, the wise Titan chained to the mountains, sensed the coming danger. Though bound and punished for his defiance, he knew that Typhon's wrath would bring chaos not only to Olympus, but to the mortal realm. With his gift of foresight, Prometheus saw the devastation Typhon would wreak and called upon Hermes, the messenger of the gods, urging him to warn Zeus of the impending disaster. "Tell Zeus," Prometheus whispered to Hermes, his voice filled with foreboding, "that Typhon is a force born from Gaia's fury, a wrath that even the gods may struggle to contain. To face him will require more than strength. It will require cunning and unity. Warn them, for if Typhon is not stopped, all realms will fall to ruin." Hermes, understanding the gravity of the warning, sped back to Olympus, carrying Prometheus's message with urgency. Upon arriving, he relayed the Titan's words to Zeus and the assembled gods, each of them feeling the weight of what was to come. Typhon was not merely a monster. He was Gaia's vengeance, an embodiment of the chaos they had so carefully kept at bay. Zeus called upon his allies, rallying the gods for the fight of their lives. Hera, Poseidon, Athena, Apollo, Artemis, and Ares each prepared, understanding that this battle would require every ounce of their strength and determination. Typhon was unlike any foe they had ever faced, a force as primal as the elements themselves, and they knew that to confront him would push their unity and their powers to their limits. "We have defeated titans, giants, and even our own doubts," Zeus declared, his thunderbolt crackling with a fierce light. "But Typhon is a foe born from chaos itself. We must fight together with every strength we possess, for he seeks to destroy not only Olympus, but the very balance we have fought to create." The gods armed themselves, their divine weapons gleaming in the growing darkness. Poseidon held his trident, summoning the strength of oceans, while Athena prepared her spear and shield, her mind racing with strategies. Apollo and Artemis readied their bows, their arrows tipped with divine fire. Even Hades, from his realm in the underworld, sent support, recognizing that Typhon's wrath could upend the natural order of life and death itself. The ground shook violently as Typhon reached the foot of Olympus. His many heads breathed fire and poison, and his massive wings blocked out the sun, casting the mountain into a shadow deeper than night. With a roar that shattered stones, Typhon unleashed a torrent of destruction, hurling massive boulders and storms of fire toward Olympus. Rivers boiled under his fury, and forests ignited, sending clouds of smoke spiraling into the heavens. Zeus led the charge, hurling a massive bolt of lightning at Typhon, its light slicing through the darkness. The bolt struck Typhon's chest, momentarily halting his advance, but the creature only roared in response, as if the strike had merely fueled his anger. Typhon retaliated, sending a storm of fire and stone toward the gods, forcing them to scatter as the ground shook and cracked beneath them. Poseidon summoned tidal waves from distant oceans, directing them toward Typhon to douse his flames. The waters crashed over the monster, but he rose from the waves, unaffected, his eyes burning with fury. With each step, Typhon proved that he was more than mere strength. He was a creature of unrelenting chaos, impervious to the very forces the gods commanded. As the battle raged on, the gods struggled to contain Typhon's fury. Hera defended Olympus with fierce resolve, shielding the mountain with waves of divine energy, yet even her powers strained against the onslaught. Apollo and Artemis fired arrows from the sky, their aim precise, striking Typhon's heads and wings, but the monster healed with unnatural speed, each wound closing almost as soon as it was made. Realizing brute force alone would not prevail, Athena called to her fellow gods. "We must think, not only strike. Typhon draws strength from Gaia. If we sever that connection, we may have a chance to weaken him." Inspired by Athena's words, Hermes sped to the depths of Tartarus, seeking a way to disrupt the bond between Typhon and Gaia. Meanwhile, the gods fought with renewed strategy, coordinating their efforts to keep Typhon at bay. Ares charged forward with a battle cry, clashing head-on with the beast, his strength and courage undiminished by the creature's size. The combined force of the gods held Typhon back, though they knew they could not hold him forever. As Hermes returned from Tartarus, he brought a fragment of rock infused with the essence of chaos itself, a tool that could sever Typhon's connection to Gaia. He handed it to Athena, who crafted a plan to use the rock to weaken the monster's link to the earth, draining his strength and leaving him vulnerable to their attacks. With Zeus leading the charge, the gods rallied for a final assault. Athena launched the fragment of chaos toward Typhon, the energy within it sparking as it struck the monster. A strange light enveloped Typhon, and he roared as he felt his connection to Gaia weaken, his strength diminishing as the chaotic energy destabilized his form. Seizing the opportunity, Zeus unleashed a massive thunderbolt, its power magnified by the unity of his fellow gods. The bolt struck Typhon with unrelenting force, searing through his body and casting him down. Poseidon sent a tidal wave crashing over him, and Apollo fired a final arrow that pierced through the flames surrounding the beast. In a final, desperate roar, Typhon collapsed, his body sinking into the earth from which he had risen. As the dust settled, Olympus remained standing, though battered and scorched from the intensity of the battle. The gods, exhausted and wounded, gathered around the place where Typhon had fallen, each feeling the weight of the victory. The battle against Typhon had proven that even Olympus was vulnerable to forces of chaos beyond their control. They had emerged victorious, but they understood that the threat of chaos would always linger, waiting for a moment of weakness. Zeus looked upon his allies, pride and relief in his gaze. Today, we have faced the very embodiment of chaos and emerged victorious. Typhon has been defeated, and Olympus stands strong. But let this remind us that our unity is our strength, and our vigilance must never waver. The gods nodded, each feeling a renewed commitment to the realm they had fought so fiercely to protect. Typhon's defeat was a reminder that their world was one of balance, a balance that would require constant care and vigilance. Typhon's defeat became a tale told in whispers, a legend passed through both mortal and divine realms. The gods knew that this victory had tested them to their core. Each god pushed to the edge of their power, forced to work together against a threat that none could have faced alone. They had learned that unity was not only a choice, but a necessity in the face of forces they could barely comprehend. With Typhon vanquished, peace once again returned to Olympus, but the gods carried with them the lessons of the battle, a reminder that they would always need to protect their realm from chaos, from both within and beyond. Their victory was not one of dominance, but of resilience, a triumph that had proven the strength of Olympus's unity. But even as peace returned, the gods would soon face another kind of rebellion, not from titans, giants, or monsters, but from mortals emboldened by their own desires. Join us in the next episode as Prometheus's actions spark defiance among humankind, forcing Zeus to make a decision that will forever change the relationship between gods and mortals. Since the gift of fire had been granted to them by Prometheus, mortals had transformed their world. They had harnessed fire to light their homes, forge tools, and build cities, growing in knowledge and ambition. Yet, with this newfound power came a sense of independence, a whisper of rebellion that spread through their hearts. Mortals, once solely reliant on the gods for guidance and protection, began to believe they could shape their own fate, a belief that both intrigued and disturbed the gods of Olympus. Zeus watched from Olympus as mortals grew bolder, their prayers less frequent, their respect for divine authority waning. This change troubled him deeply. The balance between gods and mortals, carefully maintained, was now under threat. While fire had given humans strength, it had also sown the seeds of pride and defiance. And at the root of this defiance was Prometheus, the Titan who had dared to challenge Zeus and empower humankind. Prometheus's act of rebellion had not gone unnoticed. Though Zeus had previously bound the Titan in chains as punishment, he realized that this punishment had failed to curb the influence Prometheus held over mortals. The whispers of independence among mortals grew louder with each passing day, and Zeus knew he needed to make an example that would resonate through the ages, a reminder of the consequences of defying the gods. Calling upon his council, Zeus's voice thundered through the halls of Olympus. Prometheus has not only defied my will, but has encouraged mortals to challenge our rule. His actions have disrupted the balance between gods and humanity, and he must face a punishment that will remind all who look to Olympus that defiance comes at a cost. Though some gods felt sympathy for Prometheus, they understood the severity of the situation. If mortals could defy the gods without consequence, it would only be a matter of time before other acts of rebellion followed. With a heavy heart, Zeus resolved to make an example of Prometheus, to demonstrate the unbreakable strength of divine authority. Under Zeus's command, Prometheus was brought to a remote mountain peak, the harshest, most desolate summit in the mortal realm. Here, bound in unbreakable chains forged by Hephaestus, Prometheus would face an endless torment. Each day an eagle, the sacred bird of Zeus, a symbol of divine punishment, would descend upon the Titan, tearing into him, consuming his liver, which would regenerate each night, subjecting him to unending agony. As the chains tightened around him, Prometheus looked defiantly toward Olympus, his gaze unyielding despite the torment that awaited him. Though his body would suffer, his spirit remained unbroken, his heart filled with the knowledge that he had empowered humankind, that he had given them a spark that could never be extinguished. Zeus watched from Olympus as the punishment began, the sight a grim reminder to all who would challenge the authority of the gods. Prometheus's suffering was not just retribution, it was a message, one that Zeus intended to echo through both the heavens and the mortal world. As news of Prometheus's punishment spread, mortals were struck with fear and awe. The suffering of the Titan who had gifted them fire and knowledge weighed heavily on their hearts, a sobering reminder of the gods' power and their capacity for retribution. Yet, in the quiet corners of the world, mortals began to question Zeus's decision, wondering if justice had truly been served. While some mortals returned to the gods with renewed reverence, others were emboldened by Prometheus's sacrifice, their respect for him deepening. They saw him as a symbol of courage, a being who had endured unimaginable pain to grant them the tools of progress. Though fearful, they held on to the gift of fire with an even greater appreciation, determined to honor Prometheus by advancing their own lives and communities. Zeus observed this response with a wary eye, noting that while Prometheus's punishment had subdued the majority, A small faction of mortals now revered the Titan as a martyr. Though he had achieved his purpose in instilling fear, Zeus knew that the spirit of rebellion lay dormant within humanity, waiting for a moment to rise once again. As the gods witnessed the effects of Prometheus's punishment, they gathered to discuss the future of their relationship with humanity. Some, like Athena, questioned the wisdom of such severe punishment, fearing that it would foster resentment rather than respect among mortals. "Mortals are unlike us," she said thoughtfully. "They are driven by curiosity, by a desire to shape their own destinies. While they may fear us now, we must consider the consequences of ruling solely through power." Hestia, the goddess of the hearth, agreed, her voice gentle yet filled with wisdom. "Perhaps there is room for compassion, even as we assert our authority. Mortals look to us for guidance, not only for fear of retribution, but for hope and inspiration." But Zeus, firm in his stance, reminded them of the delicate balance they maintained. Prometheus's actions threatened that balance, encouraged mortals to believe they could exist without us. If we are to govern, they must understand that we are not equals, that the gods are protectors, rulers, and guides of this world. To blur that line is to invite chaos. The gods fell silent, each feeling the weight of Zeus's words. They understood the need for order, but recognized the complexity of ruling beings as independent and ambitious as mortals. The punishment of Prometheus was a reminder to them all of the cost of divine authority, a cost that would forever shape their relationship with the mortal world. As days turned to years, Prometheus's suffering became a legend among both gods and mortals. His name was whispered in reverence, his sacrifice honored as a symbol of defiance against oppression. Mortals, though bound by fear, carried a spark within them that could not be quelled. The fire of Prometheus lived on, fueling their innovation, creativity, and will to thrive, even under the watchful eyes of the gods. For the gods of Olympus, the legacy of Prometheus's punishment served as a warning and a lesson. They knew that humanity's independence would continue to grow, that mortals would always seek to push the boundaries placed before them. Prometheus's act had planted a seed that no amount of divine punishment could fully uproot, a seed that would grow into humanity's relentless drive to shape their own fate. As he watched over the world from Olympus, Zeus could not ignore the impact of Prometheus's defiance. While he felt justified in enforcing divine order, he understood that mortals, like the Titan who had gifted them fire, possessed a strength of spirit that could not be easily subdued. Though Prometheus remained bound, his legacy had woven itself into the fabric of humanity, and Zeus knew that he had set into motion forces that even he could not fully control. The punishment had upheld divine authority, yet it had also revealed the complexity of rule, the challenge of maintaining balance without quelling the spirit of those they governed. Zeus's gaze drifted to the mortal world, his mind filled with a mixture of pride, caution, and a faint trace of unease. For in the hearts of humanity, he saw the echo of Prometheus's defiance, a reminder that true power was both an honor and a burden, a challenge that would test the gods as much as it tested mortals. Though Prometheus remained bound, and mortals continued their lives under the gods' watchful gaze, an unspoken tension lingered between Olympus and the world below. The fire that had once symbolized power now embodied humanity's resilience, a resilience that would forever remind the gods that their authority was not beyond question. The bond between mortals and gods, delicate and complex, had been altered, reshaped by the defiance of one Titan and the courage of those he had empowered. Zeus's rule endured. Olympus's authority was secure. Yet the gods knew that Prometheus's punishment was only the beginning. Mortals, with their newfound knowledge and spirit, would continue to test the boundaries of divine rule, seeking a future that lay beyond the reach of any single power, divine or mortal. But Zeus's trials were far from over. As humanity grew, their defiance would reach new heights, leading to transgressions that threatened the very fabric of the world. Join us in the next episode as Zeus faces a choice that will cleanse the earth, bringing about a flood that will change the course of history and reveal the lengths he will go to preserve the balance of creation. Though Prometheus's gift of fire had empowered mortals, leading to great advancements and achievements, it had also sown seeds of unchecked ambition. Over time, humanity's pride grew, pushing them beyond simple independence and into acts of greed, cruelty, and betrayal. As mortals grew more confident in their own power, respect for the gods began to erode, replaced by a disregard for divine authority. Zeus watched in disappointment and anger as mortals turned against each other and the natural order, harming the world they had been entrusted to nurture. Their defiance went beyond mere self-governance. It led to bloodshed, broken promises, and a world increasingly filled with darkness. Though he had long hoped they would learn restraint and humility, Zeus now saw that their actions threatened not only themselves, but the balance of all creation. Deeply troubled, he convened a council of the gods to discuss the fate of humanity. Mortals were meant to be our stewards on earth, he said, his voice filled with sorrow and frustration. But they have become a danger to themselves and the world we protect. If left unchecked, they will bring ruin to all we have built. The other gods listened in grave silence, understanding the gravity of Zeus's words. Each had watched the mortals' descent into corruption and cruelty, and though some felt sympathy, all agreed that the situation had grown dire. In the halls of Olympus, the gods debated humanity's fate, each offering a perspective on how to handle the crisis. Poseidon, god of the sea, was the first to suggest a drastic solution. "Let us cleanse the earth with a flood," he proposed, his voice calm but resolute. If mortals cannot respect the gifts they have been given, then perhaps they should start anew, learning to honor the gods in the world we created. Hera nodded in agreement, her expression somber. "They have abused the gift of life, harming one another and showing little reverence for us or the world they live in. Perhaps a flood would remind them of their place and teach them gratitude." Zeus, torn between compassion and justice, considered his allies' counsel. He knew that a flood would be a terrible punishment, a cleansing of the earth that would wipe away nearly all mortals, leaving only the pure and humble to rebuild. It was not a decision to make lightly, for it would bring suffering on a massive scale. Yet he saw no other way to preserve the balance and restore harmony to the world. After a long silence, Zeus spoke. "The flood will come, but it will not be a final end for all. There are those among humanity who still respect the gods, who have shown kindness and honor. I will spare them, that they may survive this trial and restore the earth with renewed purpose." With that, the gods solemnly agreed to unleash the flood, each understanding the gravity of their choice and the impact it would have on humanity. Zeus turned his gaze to the earth, searching for mortals worthy of survival. His eyes fell upon Deucalion and his wife, Pyrrha, two of the few who had honored the gods faithfully despite the chaos around them. Deucalion, son of Prometheus, had inherited his father's wisdom and resilience, and together with Pyrrha, he had led a life of kindness, reverence, and humility. Sending Hermes as his messenger, Zeus warned Deucalion of the coming flood and instructed him to build an ark large enough to withstand the rising waters. "Take only what you need," Hermes relayed to Deucalion, "and prepare to wait out the storm. You will be the new beginning, a chance for humanity to rise with respect and reverence once more." Grateful for the gods' mercy, Deucalion and Pyrrha immediately began their preparations, gathering supplies and crafting their vessel. Though saddened by the fate of their fellow mortals, they trusted that the gods had chosen this path for the greater good and were humbled by their role in humanity's survival. With the ark prepared, Deucalion and Pyrrha boarded, offering a final prayer to the gods for guidance and strength. Then, as the sky darkened and the winds howled, the flood began. Poseidon summoned massive waves from the depths, and rain poured from the heavens in unrelenting torrents. Rivers overflowed, mountains were submerged, and cities vanished beneath the rising water, consumed by the wrath of the gods. Zeus watched as the waters rose, his heart heavy with the weight of his decision. Though his judgment was firm, he could not help but feel sorrow for the mortals who perished, a reminder of the fragile balance between divine power and compassion. Lightning flashed across the sky, and thunder rumbled in a symphony of celestial anger, echoing the grief of Olympus as the flood cleansed the earth. Deucalion and Pyrrha, safe within their ark, endured the storm's fury, surrounded by nothing but the endless churning sea. Days turned to weeks, and as the floodwaters continued to rise, they clung to their faith, trusting that the gods would bring them through this trial. At last, after many weeks, the rains ceased, and the floodwaters began to recede. Slowly, the peaks of mountains emerged, followed by hills and valleys, as the earth revealed itself once more. When the ark finally came to rest upon a mountaintop, Deucalion and Pyrrha stepped out, greeted by a world washed clean and filled with silence, as if nature itself were holding its breath. Overwhelmed by the devastation, yet grateful for their survival, Deucalion and Pyrrha prayed to Zeus, asking for guidance on how to rebuild humanity. Great Zeus, we are humbled by your mercy and stand ready to honor you and all the gods. Show us how to bring forth a new generation that will live with respect, humility, and wisdom. Moved by their devotion, Zeus answered, instructing them to gather stones from the earth and cast them over their shoulders. Each stone will transform into a new person, he told them, a symbol of endurance, born from the earth and bound to it with respect. Let them remember the flood and honor the gods, living lives filled with gratitude for the world they inherit. Following Zeus's guidance, Deucalion and Pyrrha began casting stones, which transformed into men and women, strong and resilient. These new humans, shaped by divine intervention, carried within them the lessons of the flood, their spirits bound to the earth and tempered by reverence for the gods. As the earth returned to life, the gods of Olympus watched over the new mortals, each feeling a mix of relief and caution. They had restored balance, but the flood had served as a stark reminder of the consequences of unchecked pride and defiance. The mortals who now walked the earth were different, humbled, respectful, and aware of the gods' power and mercy alike. Poseidon, who had summoned the floodwaters, felt a sense of pride tempered with solemnity. We have given them a second chance, he mused, a chance to live with respect for the earth and for us. Let us hope they honor this gift. Hestia, goddess of the hearth, added, perhaps compassion and guidance will encourage them to keep their reverence, a gentler hand than the flood we unleashed. We are their guardians, after all, not only their rulers. Zeus nodded, his gaze fixed upon the earth below. The flood was a necessary act, yet one that weighs heavily upon us. May it serve as a reminder to both gods and mortals that balance must be preserved, that power must be tempered by wisdom. And so, the gods resolved to watch over humanity with renewed vigilance, guiding them with both strength and compassion. They knew that the future would hold more challenges, but they trusted that the mortals, born anew, would honor the lessons of the flood. In the years that followed, the story of the great flood became a legend among mortals, a tale passed down through generations as a reminder of the gods' power and the importance of humility. Deucalion and Pyrrha's descendants lived with a reverence for Olympus, honoring the divine gifts they had been given and striving to maintain harmony with the earth and its creatures. For the gods, the flood served as a profound lesson in the complexities of ruling. They understood that power alone could not sustain loyalty or respect. It required compassion, wisdom, and a willingness to protect, even as they enforced order. And though the balance had been restored, they knew that humanity's spirit would always push boundaries, seeking progress while testing the patience of the gods. The flood had brought about a new beginning, one forged in equal parts of justice and mercy, a balance that would define the relationship between gods and mortals for ages to come. But the balance would not last unchallenged. Join us in the next episode as we explore the tale of Sisyphus, a mortal whose cunning and defiance led him to deceive even the gods, earning him a punishment as unending as his ambition, and setting the stage for yet another test of Olympus's authority. Among mortals, Sisyphus was known as a man of extraordinary wit and cunning, a king whose intelligence and charm won him favor and admiration. But Sisyphus's cleverness masked a darker ambition, a disregard for the gods, and a desire to escape the fate that bound all mortals. To him, the rules of Olympus were mere obstacles, challenges to be outsmarted rather than honored. His life was filled with bold acts of deception, trickery, and defiance. He boasted of outwitting both men and gods alike, delighting in his own cleverness and believing himself untouchable. But his defiance went beyond simple disregard. He openly mocked the gods, convinced that he was beyond their reach. And so, with each act of deceit, he grew bolder until even the gods took notice of his insolence. It was not long before Sisyphus's defiance reached a level that could no longer be ignored. The first incident that drew Olympus's attention occurred when he betrayed Zeus by revealing a secret that the god had entrusted to him. In a moment of pride, Sisyphus divulged Zeus's plans to another, boasting of his insider knowledge as though the gods were mere players in his schemes. Zeus, angered by this betrayal, knew that he could not let Sisyphus's arrogance go unpunished. Yet, when Thanatos, the god of death, came to claim him and bring him to the underworld, Sisyphus used his cunning to cheat death itself. By pretending to welcome Thanatos and then ensnaring him in unbreakable chains, Sisyphus managed to trap the god of death, binding him in his own chains. This act prevented any mortal from dying, creating chaos on earth as mortals who should have passed on continued to walk among the living. The gods watched with growing frustration as Sisyphus's actions disrupted the natural order. Without Thanatos to guide souls to the underworld, the balance of life and death was thrown into disarray. Mortals who were wounded, aging, or suffering could not pass on, trapped in a state of limbo that defied the laws of nature. Ares, god of war, was particularly angered by Sisyphus's interference. His battles, which were meant to end in glory or sacrifice, became meaningless as warriors were unable to fall. Seeing the balance of the cosmos thrown into turmoil, Ares demanded that Zeus take action against the cunning king who dared to meddle with forces beyond his understanding. Zeus, recognizing the severity of Sisyphus's actions, sent Hermes to free Thanatos and capture Sisyphus. It was clear that Sisyphus's bold defiance required a punishment that would both restore the natural order and serve as a cautionary tale to all mortals who dared to challenge the gods. Though Thanatos was freed and Sisyphus was finally taken to the underworld, the cunning king was not yet finished with his schemes. Anticipating his own death, he had instructed his wife, Merope, to forego the traditional burial rites, leaving his body unburied and unhonored. When he arrived in the underworld, he approached Persephone, queen of the underworld, with yet another lie. Feigning humility, Sisyphus pleaded with Persephone, claiming that his wife's failure to perform the proper rites had deeply dishonored him. "Allow me to return to the mortal realm for a brief moment," he begged, "so that I may set things right and ensure that the proper offerings are made." Moved by his seemingly sincere request, Persephone granted him temporary release, allowing him to return to the world of the living to fulfill his supposed duties. But once back in the mortal realm, Sisyphus had no intention of returning to the underworld. He resumed his life with newfound arrogance, laughing at how easily he had once again outwitted the gods. Believing himself invincible, he continued to rule his kingdom, unrepentant and proud of his audacity. Zeus's patience had worn thin. Sisyphus's repeated defiance and flagrant disregard for divine authority required a punishment that would leave no doubt of the god's power. Summoning Hermes, Zeus ordered the swift recapture of Sisyphus, and this time he ensured that no trickery or deceit would allow him to escape. Sisyphus was seized and brought once more to the underworld, his protests falling on deaf ears as the gods watched. Zeus himself decreed that Sisyphus would suffer a punishment as eternal as his arrogance, a punishment that would serve as a reminder of the limits of mortal cunning and the inevitability of divine justice. In the deepest part of the underworld, far from the peaceful Elysian fields, Sisyphus's eternal punishment awaited him. Zeus commanded that he be given a task so endless and futile that it would break his spirit and humble his pride. Sisyphus was condemned to push a massive boulder up a steep hill, a boulder enchanted to roll back down each time he neared the summit. As Sisyphus strained against the weight, pushing the boulder with every ounce of his strength, he would reach the top, only to watch helplessly as the boulder slipped from his grasp, tumbling back to the base of the hill. Day after day, he would begin anew, each effort ending in the same agonizing failure. There was no end to his toil, no moment of rest or reprieve. His cleverness, his defiance, his pride, all were rendered meaningless against the relentless weight of his punishment. This endless labor became the symbol of his defiance turned to despair, a reminder that no mortal, no matter how cunning, could escape the justice of the gods. The other souls in the underworld looked upon Sisyphus with a mixture of pity and fear. His punishment was a lesson etched into the fabric of the underworld, a warning that reached beyond the realm of the dead and into the mortal world. Mortals and gods alike came to know the story of Sisyphus, the man who had dared to challenge Olympus and was now bound to an eternity of fruitless labor. Even Persephone, who had once granted Sisyphus a brief reprieve, observed his torment with a somber understanding. She knew that justice, while often harsh, was necessary to maintain balance. For the gods, Sisyphus's punishment was a reminder of the fine line between compassion and order, a line that could not be crossed without consequence. Over time, the tale of Sisyphus spread through both mortal and divine realms as a symbol of hubris and the cost of defying the gods. Mortals, inspired and warned by his story, recognized the limits of their own cleverness and the importance of humility. The sight of a mountain or a heavy stone would bring to mind the image of Sisyphus endlessly laboring, his punishment a reminder of the balance that must be respected between gods and men. The gods, too, reflected on Sisyphus's punishment. While they upheld their rule with justice, they understood that true authority was not only a display of power, but also a means of guiding mortals. In Sisyphus's fall, they saw both a lesson in the dangers of arrogance and a testament to the enduring strength of divine law. Though Sisyphus's spirit had once been unbreakable, his punishment served as a reminder that even the proudest of mortals must respect the order of the cosmos, a respect that, when ignored, would lead to eternal consequence. For eons, Sisyphus continued his punishment. Each attempt to reach the top of the hill met with the same inevitable failure. His plight became more than just a tale of defiance. It became an enduring symbol of struggle and perseverance, of ambition unchecked, and the endless pursuit of meaning in a task that could never be completed. In his suffering, Sisyphus embodied the limits of mortal power and the wisdom that comes from understanding those limits. He had challenged the gods, and in doing so, had become a reminder to all who would dare defy the divine that there are forces beyond even the cleverest mortal's control. But even as the gods enforced justice, questions of power and control remained. Join us in the next episode as Zeus faces a new struggle, the limits of his own authority over fate, and the realization that even a king of gods cannot control every outcome in a world bound by destiny. Zeus, king of the gods, had forged an existence of power and authority. Through victory over the Titans, the establishment of laws, and countless acts of divine retribution, he had secured his rule over both Olympus and the mortal realm. Yet, even with his unmatched might, there was one force that Zeus had never fully conquered: fate. The Fates, three ancient sisters, older than the gods themselves, were the weavers of destiny, spinning, measuring, and cutting the threads of life with unyielding precision. This reality weighed on Zeus's mind. Though he could wield lightning and thunder, and even shape the path of mortals, he understood that the ultimate control over destiny lay in the hands of the Fates. Clotho spun the threads, Lachesis measured them, and Atropos, with solemn finality, cut each one. Each mortal life, and even the lives of gods, were touched by their work, bound to destinies that Zeus could not alter at will. The Fates operated independently, honoring no allegiance to any god, not even to Zeus. They served a power beyond Olympus, beyond any realm Zeus commanded, a truth that he found increasingly difficult to accept. One day, Zeus received a vision, a prophecy that sent a chill through his very being. He saw glimpses of a future where gods would fall, Olympus would weaken, and the reign of the immortals would give way to forces that lay beyond his reach. Though the vision was clouded, one thing was clear: his power was not as absolute as he believed. Fate held plans that even he, with all his might, could not prevent. Determined to uncover the full scope of the prophecy, Zeus sought out the oracle of Delphi. The oracle, a revered mortal priestess, spoke with the wisdom of the gods, but was bound to serve the voice of fate itself. Sitting in her shadowed temple, she closed her eyes and channeled the message that Zeus longed and feared to hear. Your reign, mighty Zeus, is powerful, but not infinite. Forces beyond Olympus are at play, and no god, not even you, can escape the designs of fate. When the time comes, even kings may fall, and destiny will prevail. The prophecy unsettled Zeus. Though he ruled Olympus, though he had crushed the Titans and defeated monsters, he could not dismiss the words of the oracle. He knew that fate's grip was unbreakable, that its design stretched beyond his understanding, encompassing realms and futures that he could neither see nor control. Driven by a need to confront his limitations, Zeus decided to seek out the fates themselves. Venturing to the dark, secretive cave where they resided, he approached with caution and respect. The three sisters awaited him, their forms draped in shadow, each bearing the tools of her trade, Clotho with her spinning wheel, Lachesis with her measuring rod, and Atropos with her shears. Zeus inclined his head, a rare gesture of humility. Great fates, I come not to defy you, but to understand. Tell me, is there truly no force that can alter the paths you weave? Is the destiny of gods and mortals alike truly unchangeable? The fates exchanged knowing glances, each sister considering the question. At last, Lachesis, the measurer, spoke in a voice that resonated with ageless wisdom. We do not govern out of malice or favor, Zeus. We merely serve a higher order. Every life, every choice, every consequence has its place in the tapestry. You may influence lives, but destiny has already accounted for your hand, as it has accounted for all things. Atropos added, her shears gleaming as she prepared to cut another thread. You may be king, Zeus, but even kings are threads in the fabric of existence, bound to the path set before them. Their words, though respectful, were final. Zeus felt the weight of his own limits, a humbling reminder that his reign was part of a much larger design. Despite their words, Zeus could not abandon the need to assert his influence. Returning to Olympus, he sought ways to challenge the edges of destiny. He intervened in the lives of mortals, trying to alter the courses of their fates, yet each time the outcomes unfolded as if preordained, with consequences that only reaffirmed the power of the fates. Despite their words, Zeus could not abandon the need to assert his influence. Returning to Olympus, he sought ways to challenge the edges of destiny. He intervened in the lives of mortals, trying to alter the courses of their fates, yet each time the outcomes unfolded as if preordained, with consequences that only reaffirmed the power of the fates. One day, in an attempt to prove his influence, Zeus decided to test his power over the life of a hero beloved by Olympus, someone whose destiny had been woven into a path of greatness. Though fate had laid a course for the hero to face many trials, Zeus sought to shield him, diverting dangers in an effort to secure his safety. Yet, in spite of Zeus's intervention, the hero faced each challenge, each ordeal, as if guided by an unseen force. Every danger Zeus shielded him from was replaced by another, each trial unavoidable, leading the hero back to the destiny that fate had chosen. Frustrated, Zeus realized that he could not protect the hero from the course laid before him. Even his divine will was powerless against the web spun by the fates. As Zeus reflected on his inability to alter the hero's destiny, he felt the weight of a humbling truth. He could inspire, influence, even punish, but he could not rewrite the paths that had already been woven. The fates were the silent architects of the cosmos, and their designs could not be broken by mere power. Though he commanded lightning and thunder, though his voice could shake the heavens, he was bound by the same cosmic order that governed mortals and gods alike. For the first time in his rule, Zeus felt a deep sense of humility. He had always believed himself the ultimate authority, yet now he understood that he was part of a much larger design, a thread in a tapestry as ancient as time itself. In accepting this truth, Zeus recognized that his role was not to control, but to guide and protect, to serve as a steward of Olympus rather than as its sole ruler. It was a revelation that altered his view of both mortals and gods, a realization that his power, while vast, was not without limits. Embracing this newfound understanding, Zeus returned to Olympus with a different perspective. He understood now that true strength did not lie in attempting to control every outcome, but in guiding those destined paths with wisdom and compassion. Became more deliberate in his actions, focusing not on defying the fates, but on supporting those who sought to fulfill their destinies with courage and integrity. Zeus also began to foster a deeper respect for the choices of mortals, understanding that while he could not change their destinies, he could offer guidance, helping them find strength within their predetermined paths. He would continue to be a guardian, a protector, but he would no longer see himself as a force that could alter the fabric of fate. Olympus reflect. As Zeus shared his revelation with the other gods, they too began to see the beauty and complexity of fate's design. Hera, Athena, and Apollo, each in their own way, reflected on the fate's power and the limits of even divine intervention. They recognized that their purpose was not to control, but to nurture and protect the lives woven into existence, to offer wisdom and support as each thread of destiny unraveled. As Zeus shared his revelation with the other gods, they too began to see the beauty and complexity of fate's design. Hera, Athena, and Apollo, each in their own way, reflected on the fate's power and the limits of even divine intervention. They recognized that their purpose was not to control, but to nurture and protect the lives woven into existence, to offer wisdom and support as each thread of destiny unraveled. Athena, goddess of wisdom, voiced her appreciation for this newfound humility. We are the guardians of existence, not its authors. Perhaps it is in guiding and protecting that we fulfill our greatest purpose, respecting the paths set before us rather than forcing our will upon them. The gods nodded in agreement, feeling a renewed respect for the fates and their work. They understood now that even as gods, they were part of a divine order that extended beyond their reach. And in that understanding, they found a unity that deepened their commitment to protect and honor the cosmos. Zeus's struggle with fate became a legend, a tale told among gods and mortals alike as a testament to humility and acceptance. Though he was a god of immense power, Zeus had come to embrace the strength found in acknowledging limits, a strength that transcended control, rooted in respect for the mysteries that lay beyond even Olympus's understanding. Through his journey, Zeus learned that guiding destiny was an act of wisdom, not dominance, and that his greatest legacy would be found not in ruling over fate, but in protecting the world within it. And with that revelation, he took his place not as a god defying destiny, but as a wise and compassionate ruler who honored the intricate web of life spun by the fates. But even as Zeus found peace with fate, rivalries and ambitions stirred within Olympus. Join us in the next episode as the gods themselves become divided in a conflict over the mortal realm. Poseidon, god of the sea, challenges Zeus's authority, igniting a battle for the city of Athens that will test both the unity and the wisdom of Olympus. As Zeus stood atop Olympus, his thoughts returned to the choices and conflicts that had shaped his reign. He had faced rebellious titans, monstrous giants, the ambitions of his fellow gods, and the defiance of mortals. He had built Olympus into a beacon of divine order, establishing justice and overseeing the mortal realm with wisdom and strength. Yet, for all his power, Zeus knew that every decision, every alliance, and every act of power had come at a price. The recent struggle with fate had left Zeus with a deeper respect for destiny, understanding that his role was not to control every outcome but to guide and protect. But this newfound acceptance of limits did not come without challenges. Among the gods, rivalries and ambitions continued to simmer, each divine being possessing realms of influence they guarded jealously. And now, the city of Athens had become a focal point of those ambitions. Poseidon, god of the sea and Zeus's brother, saw the city as an opportunity to expand his influence, to claim a place of honor among mortals. Yet Zeus, whose own plans for Athens revolved around wisdom and stability, sensed that a conflict was inevitable. What had begun as a mere contest had now become a battle for respect, pride, and control. Athens, a burgeoning city full of promise and vitality, drew the interest of both Poseidon and Athena. Each god saw in the city a reflection of their own values and gifts. Poseidon, with his power over the seas, envisioned Athens as a strong, seafaring nation, one that would honor the power of the oceans and its treasures. In contrast, Athena, goddess of wisdom and warfare, saw the city as a place of learning, innovation, and strategic strength, a beacon of knowledge that could shine throughout Greece. Zeus, observing from Olympus, recognized the potential of both visions, but also sensed the growing tension between Poseidon and Athena. Despite his desire to foster harmony, Zeus knew he could not simply choose one god over the other without stirring resentment. He decided to let Poseidon and Athena each present their gifts to the people of Athens, allowing the mortals themselves to decide who would become their patron god. But Poseidon's ambition would not be satisfied by a simple contest. His pride, inflamed by a lifetime of rivalry with Zeus, led him to approach the situation with force, a desire to prove his power and establish his legacy over the city. Zeus, realizing that this contest could threaten the stability of Olympus itself, prepared to intervene, hoping to mediate before the conflict escalated into outright battle. The gods descended to Athens, their presence turning mortal eyes skyward as the citizens gathered to witness the contest. Poseidon approached first, striking his trident against the earth. From the ground, a powerful spring burst forth, its waters salty and brimming with the power of the sea. The people marveled at the sight, recognizing Poseidon's strength and the wealth the ocean could bring. Then Athena stepped forward, and with a touch of her spear, she planted an olive tree, its branches spreading gracefully, promising sustenance, peace, and prosperity. The people observed its fruits, seeing in the olive tree a gift that would provide food, oil, and wood, a lasting symbol of life and wisdom. The citizens deliberated, each gift embodying a path for the city's future. Ultimately, they chose Athena's gift, seeing in it a promise of stability, wisdom, and growth. The olive tree, they believed, would stand as a symbol of the values they wished to embrace, bringing peace and prosperity to their city for generations. Poseidon's disappointment turned swiftly to anger. He saw the choice as a personal slight, a rejection not only of his gift, but of his power. In a fury, he raised his trident, summoning waves from the sea to crash against the city's shores. The skies darkened as a storm gathered, and thunder rumbled, a warning to the mortals who had dared to refuse the god of the seas. Witnessing Poseidon's wrath, the people of Athens cowered in fear, and Zeus felt the tension reach its breaking point. He could not allow his brother to lay waste to a city that had chosen its patron in peace. Zeus descended from Olympus, his thunderbolt crackling with energy as he confronted Poseidon, his voice calm yet resolute. "Brother, the mortals have chosen their patron. Honor their choice as we have agreed," Zeus commanded, his tone a blend of authority and empathy. "Your power is vast, Poseidon, but Athens has chosen wisdom. Respect their decision, and let not pride blind you to the value of restraint." Poseidon, though seething, recognized the finality in Zeus's words. With a resentful glance at the olive tree and the people who stood by it, he withdrew his storm, though his pride remained wounded. the god of the sea retreated to his domain, his fury quelled, but not entirely forgotten. With Poseidon's retreat, peace returned to Athens, and the people celebrated Athena as their patron. The olive tree became a sacred symbol, representing their bond with the goddess of wisdom and the path they had chosen. Zeus returned to Olympus with a renewed sense of purpose, yet he remained aware of the simmering tensions within his family. The conflict over Athens had not only challenged Poseidon's pride, but also hinted at deeper rivalries among the gods, rivalries that could one day threaten the unity of Olympus itself. As Zeus looked over the city of Athens from the heights of Olympus, he saw the balance he had fought so hard to preserve hanging by a thread. The gods were powerful, but they were also bound by the same flaws and emotions as mortals. Ambition, jealousy, pride, all had been present in the battle for Athens, and Zeus knew they would not simply fade away. Though peace had been restored for now, the king of the gods understood that future conflicts were inevitable. The gods, like the mortals they ruled, would always be drawn to rivalry and competition, to the pursuit of their own legacy and influence. As he watched the olive tree sway gently in the Athenian breeze, Zeus made a silent vow to keep Olympus united, knowing that the stability of both gods and mortals depended on it. Back in Olympus, the gods gathered, each reflecting on the recent events. Hera, watching the interactions with measured caution, noted the growing ambition within each god, sensing that the battles ahead would test the unity of Olympus as never before. Athena, though victorious in the contest, understood the importance of humility, seeing in Poseidon's reaction a reminder that even the smallest conflicts could spark resentment. Hestia, goddess of the hearth, urged the gods to value peace over pride. "We are bound by more than power," she reminded them. "Our purpose lies in protecting both gods and mortals. If we allow rivalry to consume us, we risk losing everything we've built." Poseidon, though still harboring resentment, acknowledged the wisdom in Hestia's words. He recognized that his pride had led him to overlook the people's choice, and with a reluctant but sincere nod, he made peace with his loss. Yet beneath his calm, he knew that his thirst for respect and recognition was not easily quenched. As the gods departed, each returning to their realms, Zeus felt the weight of his role more heavily than ever. He had kept the peace for now, but he knew that the ambitions and rivalries within Olympus would only grow with time. Athens had become a beacon of wisdom, a city that would endure as a testament to Athena's vision. Yet its establishment had also sparked a fire of rivalry among the gods, a fire that Zeus feared would one day threaten the very foundations of Olympus. Standing alone in the great hall, Zeus gazed out over the mortal world, his mind turning to the future. He had held Olympus together through diplomacy and strength, yet he understood that every choice, every conflict, carried consequences beyond his control. His power as king of the gods was vast, but the ambitions of his family were relentless, and he knew that his greatest tests still lay ahead. With a final look at the city of Athens, Zeus steeled himself for what was to come, aware that the next battles would not only challenge his rule, but reveal the limits of divine unity. As the clouds cleared and the skies above Olympus returned to calm, the king of gods prepared for a future filled with challenges, both from within his family and beyond. But while battles for power tested the gods, other forces simmered in Olympus and the mortal realm. Join us in the next series as we explore the passionate and often turbulent relationships of Zeus, his lovers, and the consequences that would ripple through both the divine and mortal worlds. In the first episode, a fateful encounter with Europa will reveal the lengths to which Zeus will go for love, setting off a series of romantic entanglements that will challenge his loyalty, provoke jealousy, and redefine his legacy.